The future holds self-driving cars and flying taxis. In the past, however, we've transported a cat through an underground suction pipe and it survived. Here's how it's all connected and why we humans don't travel in tubes. So this American company named Hyperloop promised for years it would transport people incredibly fast through a vacuum system. Its ambitious plans included rapid trains, capable of traveling at speeds of 700 miles per hour. By comparison, the passenger trains we have available these days can travel on average just 50 to 100 miles per hour. But to everyone's surprise, the company closed down last year. Even though they made prototypes in the Nevada desert, the project had many problems. They needed to build huge tubes that would have been scattered around, even through cities. And the trains couldn't handle turns very well, so the tubes had to be straight. In 2020, the company did a test run with 2 people, going at 107 miles per hour. It was the first successful ride using this technology. Despite this initial success, the company soon announced they'd focus on moving objects instead of people. Does this mean we'll never be able to use this type of transportation for people? Let's look at it historically. Pneumatic tube transport relies on air pressure to push things through pipes. Back in the day, it was used for sending messages and moving small objects in big buildings. Even today, places like hospitals, banks, and stores still use it to quickly send things like medicine and money. Here's how it works. Say you run a store with cash registers. Instead of risking theft by walking cash to a safe, you can send it through tubes. Each register connects to a tube that leads to a safe or cashier's office. All objects would be transported through canisters. They'd snugly fit in the mechanism, then get sucked by a vacuum created by a compressor. Canisters are often sturdy cylindrical boxes made of tough plastic, carrying items weighing up to about 5 pounds and traveling at speeds up to 22 miles per hour. There are limitations to consider. Installing pneumatic tube systems in existing buildings can be challenging, as they require careful planning during the initial design phase. There's also the risk of valuable items becoming stuck or damaged during transport. You can't move around objects that are larger than 5 pounds or so it doesn't eliminate the need for manual labor. For more than half a century, until 1953, the New York City Post Office used a similar system to transport its mail. It was based on pipes that ran underground, up to 6 feet below the city streets. Because it had revolutionary speeds at the time, the people who operated the system were nicknamed Rocketeers. At its busiest, this tube system handled almost 100,000 letters every day, which was a third of all the city mail. The first thing they sent through these tubes was a book wrapped in a flag, along with copies of important country documents. Other funnier objects are rumored to have been sent through this system, including a fake peach meant as a joke or a sandwich. They even sent a cat through one of the tubes once. It's hard to imagine how the cat made it through the system at such a high speed, but it did. Local authorities soon had to let go of this project, though, because of the costs. The New York population also grew larger, and the number of letters became overwhelming for these small tubes. Hyperloop's idea was to transport people using the same principles. Cool as it sounds, it's not new. Images with similar concepts date back to the 19th century. Some say the idea hasn't been properly studied in the 20th century because large companies are more interested in selling cars. But even with modern technology, a pneumatic tube train is hard to build, mostly because it involves multiple engineering areas and it's expensive. Getting permits would also be difficult. Another issue is that compressed air that's being pushed through a small area translates to a lot of heat, so cooling systems need to be worked into these plans. One potential solution was to put a water tank in each train to catch the heat and turn it into steam at the next stop. Even if the science makes sense on paper, in reality, there's not a lot of space in the small train for a good heat exchange. This means more water, which means more weight, which in turn means less speed. One Asian company, however, claims to have created the fastest pneumatic train earlier this year. In theory, this device could transport someone from New York to Los Angeles in under an hour, or from London to Paris in just 15 minutes. To prove their efforts, they set up a mile-long testing track where the prototype train reached 387 miles per hour. The company considers this test a success, affirming that it proved the seamless interaction between the test tube, vehicle, and track. As they were developing the project, they uncovered troubles of their own. A power outage, leak, fire, or even a simple human error could lead to a disastrous accident. More so, the train's high speed and rapid acceleration could induce discomfort among passengers. Hyperloop trains aside, what might the future of getting around look like? Better ways of moving from one place to another could make our lives easier by reducing time, expenses, and accidents. One idea could be fast trains that float. These speedy vehicles might use strong magnets to hover above the tracks, letting them go fast while making less noise and shaking than regular trains. They're also less likely to get stuck because they don't rub against the tracks as much. These trains also don't need gas, so they're better in terms of resources as well. Instead of engines, they use magnetic fields made by special coils in the walls and tracks to push them forward. Right now, 6 of these lines are up and running in Asia, but soon they might appear in the US too. The first one is planned to connect Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and later it might stretch all the way to New York. About 20 companies are also exploring the idea of flying taxis. They could transport people in cities with the help of small planes. The idea is to offer safe rides at a fair price, like a $70 trip from Manhattan to Kennedy Airport, without bothering those on the ground below. Challenges here include reducing flight expenses, increased urban noise, and drafting rules about flying over busy cities. Even though some people are still nervous about the idea, it seems that driverless cars are on the way to becoming a reality. Many automobile companies are testing out their prototypes, even though there are still questions about how safe they can be. We don't know yet if the same rules should apply to them as the ones for human drivers. Lots of accidents happen because drivers aren't paying attention, but robots don't get distracted. Driverless cars are supposed to take fewer risks and go slower to keep everyone safe. On the downside, they're expensive, with prices expected to be over $100,000 apiece. Projects including delivery drones have already been implemented too. For instance, a UPS drone brought medicine to people's homes in the U.S. after getting approval from the Federal Aviation Administration. It was a big step forward for drones, even though there are still rules to sort out before they can be used on a larger scale. Drones have to prove they're safe before they can fly freely over people's heads. So, for now, UPS is only using them in rural areas and around hospitals. To solve traffic jams, we might turn to building roads underground and driving our cars through tunnels. This could work better than flying cars because the process is not affected by the weather. One plan is to lower cars down with a big elevator and allow them to circulate on a fast metal platform. The advantages may include faster speeds, since there are fewer risks of accidents from things like wild animals crossing the road. It also might be less expensive, since people are less likely to be stuck in traffic. Not to mention our cities might end up looking a little prettier and less noisy. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.